Welcome back to Special Educators Resource Room Podcast. This is Jennifer from Positively Learning. This is episode 178. Can you believe it? Thank you so much for sticking with me. If your classroom's feeling a little bit extra tired right now, because of course it is, you are absolutely not imagining it. This time of year has a very specific energy to it. The routines that might have felt smooth just a couple months ago suddenly now feel a lot harder. Students are restless. Transitions are taking longer. Our patience just might be a little thinner, and even simple things can start feeling very heavy. And I do think this is the time of year where you might be questioning, am I doing something wrong? Should I really be doing this? Does this get any easier? So let's talk about it. And I promise to answer that last question at the end. The end of the school year actually gives us a lot of information because when everyone is tired, students, teachers, everybody, your classroom starts revealing which systems are truly independent and then which systems are still depending on you. And this is important, not because we're going to overhaul everything before summer. Please don't even think that. This is not your sign to reinvent your classroom in May. But it is a really valuable moment to notice what is working, what is still being held together, because those are the systems that are worth keeping. If these systems can survive the most exhausting part of May, then they are solid and they are working for you. And that's not something we can always notice in October or even January, because at the beginning of the year, we naturally might have more capacity to carry these types of things. We might be prompting more, explaining more, redirecting more, helping students get a restart more often. And we don't realize how much energy that routine is requiring until we don't have that energy anymore. And that is where things can start to change. At the end of the year, your classroom starts showing you what routines really are automatic, what systems really did reduce interruptions, and what students can actually do independently. You can also see what only worked because you were constantly holding it together. It's very useful information. No judgment, just information. For example, maybe you notice there's one independent routine that students can move through without much prompting. Maybe it's your arrival routine. Students know where to start. They know what to do when they arrive. They know what happens when they're finished. If that's still functioning reasonably well in May, that's a keeper. Now let's contrast that with another routine. Maybe it's dismissal. Maybe dismissal in May has reached a new level of hot mess because it wasn't that solid. Maybe it was working for you because you were in charge of it. You were there, you were directing, you were redirecting, you were staying on top of everyone. But now, towards the very end of the year, maybe you're not keeping that same type of structure for a lot of different reasons because you really shouldn't have to, right? But dismissal is a hot mess. So the information we're getting from that is that that routine wasn't so solid in the first place. Again, no judgment, just really good information as you're reflecting on the year on what worked and what didn't really serve you. This end of year exposes where a system maybe never fully became independent in the first place. This is just the information part. What do we actually do with this information? Sometimes we think we need better things or better activities or we need to purchase something. But often what we actually need is just clearer structure around that routine. That's where we get stuck. We spend so much time searching for new materials and new centers and new themes and new activities because it's fun. We love classroom doorbells. We love setting up a password that students have to do something as they enter or exit the classroom. But the real shift often comes from just having clearer expectations. More predictable routines, stronger visuals like a structure, and simpler transitions. Not nearly as much fun as making a purchase. But classrooms do start to feel calmer, usually not when you have the most materials, but when students know what to expect. That predictability also lowers confusion. And when confusion lowers, interruptions often lower too. May is also a really good time to notice what feels unnecessarily heavy. Not aesthetically heavy, but mentally heavy. There is a difference. Maybe there are other systems that you're maintaining that are just requiring so much of your time. There's too much prep, too many explanations. There's too many moving pieces, too much teacher involvement. And maybe those things looked very impressive at one point in the school year, but right now they are telling you the truth. If a system completely collapses the second our energy drops, that system may not be sustainable in the long term. And that's good information. When we realize this, it can actually feel like relief because it gives you permission to simplify. You don't need to carry that idea into next school year. You don't need to save every routine you did this year. You don't need to rebuild that perfect classroom over the summer. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can do is ask, what actually made the day feel easier? Not prettier, not trending, just easier. What gave students more independence? What reduced interruptions? What created more breathing room? What allowed the classroom to keep moving so you were able to help another student? Those are usually the things worth rebuilding. I know I've said this before on this podcast, but I was one of those crazy teachers who actually enjoyed the end of the school year. I mean, once testing season was over, because that was crazy. But once that was over, I felt like we could take a big, deep breath, and my mindset just changed. Now, I did not personally enjoy all the craziness like the countdowns and assemblies and field days, mostly because it just disrupted our routine and my students had a difficult time handling that. But my mindset got into that clean, organized pack-up mode, and I love that energy. I felt like I could just look at things more clearly. I could say, that worked, that didn't work, that worked, let's keep that, and let's ditch this. And then I even kind of got into that mode of like dreaming about next year. There's something about summer coming that just makes you feel more optimistic. And as you head towards summer break, I don't want you looking around your classroom and thinking, what else do I need? What should I add? Instead, I hope that you would be noticing what routines are still functioning, what is helping you reduce your mental load, what gave you breathing room during the day, what can students do independently. Those are the things worth keeping, and those are the systems worth strengthening for next year. And if your independent work systems still feel harder than they should right now, I do want to say this very clearly. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. This is just information your classroom is giving you. And it usually comes down to structure around the work that still needs support. Routines and student independence, that's something we teach. And strong systems take time to build. So if your classroom feels messy or imperfect right now, you are very much not alone in that, especially in May. Now, I want to circle back to that question I mentioned at the beginning. Does this ever get any easier? And I want to answer that honestly. No. Teaching itself doesn't get any easier. In fact, some parts might actually get harder because you understand more and you notice more. You're carrying more responsibility. But experience changes things. You start learning what to worry about and what not to worry about, what actually matters, what can wait, what systems do work for you, and what absolutely does not work for you. You build on your successes and you stop trying to do every single thing. You start recognizing patterns much faster. So in that sense, yes, parts of the job do become more manageable, not because teaching became easy, but because you became more experienced, more reflective, and more confident in your decisions. And I hate to give you one more thing to think about, but there is something I'd encourage you to notice this week. As you're looking around at the chaos going on in front of you, ask yourself, where in the classroom are students able to function independently, even when everyone is tired? That's data. That's information. And that is something worth paying attention to before summer. Thank you so much for listening. Good luck in these next few weeks. I hope this episode gave you a little bit of breathing room today. I'll catch you next time in the Special Educators Resource Room. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm dying to ask, what'd you think? Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe buttons so that you never miss an episode. You can find the show notes and links for everything mentioned in this episode at positivelylearningblog.com. See you next week for more special education solutions.